Okay guys, I'm gonna share my thoughts after the TikTok ban, and I feel like there's something worse about it than people are thinking. If you think this is just about, oh, people aren't gonna have another social media app, y'all need to wake up, because that is not at all what I'm most angry about. I feel like our government just proved that we are in fact not a republic. The people that we vote into power, into our government, are supposed to serve the wishes of the people. And the law that got passed banning TikTok was no Americans got any say in that at all. Our government officials created this bill without public approval, snuck it into another piece of legislation that wasn't even overwhelming about that. Joe Biden signed it into law. It goes to the Supreme Court. Because it's in law, the Supreme Court says, oh, we can't do anything. So a whole law got passed without most of the country being aware of it. And a republic is supposed to mean that the people that we vote into power serve the wishes of the people. So there's 170 million Americans on Instagram, and none of us wished for TikTok to get banned. So why did it still get banned? Who were they serving when they banned TikTok? It wasn't the American people. They served themselves. Because when you look up how much lobbying happens in our government, Mark Zuckerberg specifically has been putting a lot of money into these lobbyist groups that push certain legislation, and they push these legislation because these other companies benefit for them. Our government is so corrupt. And apparently our government is allowed to be corrupt. It's legal for government officials to buy stocks in publicly traded companies as long as we know about it, right? So all of these senators that voted for the TikTok ban and just so happen to also have invested in Meta, it's not corrupt, even though they are essentially doing insider trading to a certain extent, because, oh, well, we're gonna ban this app that a lot of Americans are on, and they'll have no choice but to use the other biggest apps out there, right? The ones that Mark Zuckerberg owns. I also feel like it's turning into an oligarchy. Why does one person seem to have a majority of all of these social media apps? There's just so much about the entire situation that makes me just feel very sad for our country, and it's just opened my eyes personally to the amount of corruption, because everything that they are accusing TikTok of doing was unfounded. There was no evidence that TikTok was storing our data in a malicious way, that the Chinese government had any access to our data. This was all a made up threat. Who made up the threat? I don't know. That they used to basically take away an app that millions of Americans use, not just for social media. There's millions of businesses that were able to thrive because of that. There are tons of creators, whether that's from the TikTok fund, whether you were selling things like TikTok Shop, literally created a source of income for so many people. And to make 107, like, all of those people are impacted so negatively by this, and the government doesn't care because, quote unquote, our data was at risk, but there was no proof. And then the TikTok CEO offered to store the data in the US owned companies so that they couldn't claim there was a risk, and they said that wasn't good enough. And basically what it came down to is they were trying to force this man to sell his company to an American, because the American government wants to be able to control the narrative of the apps. They don't like how the information gets shared on TikTok without the US government's control, because PS, Mark Zuckerberg has a whole deal with the government that he will sell our information to them if they need it for anything. Mark Zuckerberg's apps, Instagram, Facebook, you can't post certain things on there. Mark Zuckerberg, actually Instagram and Facebook, you have the least amount of free speech on that platform than any other platform that I've ever used. And it's because they don't care. He doesn't care about your ability to actually speak freely. They want to push whatever propaganda makes them look beneficial. I don't know. So basically, I just have no trust in our government anymore. I feel like something needs to change. Every single senator, congressperson that voted for the TikTok ban, and someone can say, oh, well, they weren't aware they were voting for it because, you know, it was just a small piece of legislation that got passed. And I also feel like the bigger issue to me is it's slowly chipping away at their rights. Because if they can ban TikTok, what else are they going to ban? It honestly already feels like the government has way more control, and they're not serving their constituents anymore. They are serving their own best interests by being allowed to get paid by lobbyists to say, hey, we're going to give you this money if you support this bill that we're going to also try to get into the law. Like, these lobbyist companies are not serving the interest of people. They're serving the interest of big businesses. And at the end of the day, this government does not serve the people. They serve big businesses, big pharma, insurance companies. They all pay millions of dollars into lobbyists to get legislation passed that will benefit them so that they're able to thrive and get all of this money. And it's so crazy to me. So crazy to me that no one is recognizing this. Our government is very corrupt. It shouldn't be legal for people and government officials to take essentially bribes or to receive any money from lobbyists that especially work around that they can get like, if they can benefit from a lobbyist financially, they shouldn't be allowed to speak to those people. Like, I literally just feel like this whole situation, it's not about just we don't have TikTok. It's about, I feel like our freedom just came into question. I'm not free to use an app that every other person in the world can use. Oh, except China, by the way. China banned TikTok. So TikTok's not in China or in the US, and we're supposed to feel like this is the freest country in the world. We have all this freedom, but we can't even use a freaking app because our government made up a threat of our data being at risk. This feels like the Twilight Zone. This just feels like, it just doesn't feel like I don't feel free anymore. I feel like our country is just gonna start continue, and like I said, this to me really just opens the door for them to take away even more things from the American people. That's what it is. It's opening Pandora's box, essentially. Now that they've proven we can shut down a whole entire app without most people's knowledge, because I remember hearing about the TikTok ban, but I wasn't aware when it even got passed or signed into law or things like that. So it's just, like I said, it's crazy to me that that is the focus, right? Don't you think our government should focus on way more important issues than a social media app? I really just think they didn't like that they didn't have control over how the TikTok algorithm spread information. They didn't like that people were able to get information from other people. You know, when things would happen and people were sharing about the, you know, things that happened on, you could see someone, like the actual point of view, without having to go to a news source. They didn't like that. The government has a lot of control over what you see, and that's what people don't understand. Media companies work very closely with the government officials at times when these huge stories break, whatever. There are people in the government that are making sure certain things are pushed around certain topics, because they want to give the people the illusion that we can trust our government. Anyways, that's really all I have to say. Like I said, I feel like something needs to be done about it, and I honestly feel like even if TikTok gets bought out by an American company, like if Mark Zuckerberg purchases TikTok, y'all, I still do not want to use it. I still would not trust it at all, because there is anything Mark Zuckerberg touches, he ruins. Instagram was great till Mark Zuckerberg bought it, and TikTok will not be the same if Zuckerberg purchases it. I already know he's going to change the algorithm. We're not going to be able to know as much. It's going to be heavily censored, because that's what he did to Instagram, that's what he did to Facebook. You know, we're being censored in our social media. We're being censored in our actual media we get from news outlets. Like I said, I feel like I can't trust anything anymore. Or finding like a good news source feels like it's going to be more difficult now. So that's all I have to say, y'all. I really just hope that President Trump is able to do something to save TikTok. What he can do, I don't know. I've watched a lot of TikTok videos, right? I get informed by a lot of things on TikTok. And now, like, you could hear people who worked closely in government share information about certain things on TikTok, and now we don't even have that. So I literally just don't even know who to trust. I definitely am not getting on Facebook or Instagram. I'm not gonna give Mark Zuckerberg any more of my time or energy, because I do not trust that man with anything. And he's been stealing our information for years and selling our data to the government for years. So yeah, don't trust him.